This may not come as a big surprise. Members of Congress are setting new spending records on what's called those earmarked projects. Vital research into things like salmon and brown tree snakes and fruit flies and so on. According to the watchdog group Citizens Against Government Waste, more than $15 billion of your dollars have been put aside to tackle these big issues. Well, here now, the man behind the pig report, Tom Schatz, president of Citizens Against Government Waste. Tom, great to have you here. But you know what? We do this story every year, citing different bizarre examples of government spending, but nothing changes.
Oh, some things have changed.
Like what?
Senate Republicans, for example, have voted at least to change their rules to permanently ban earmarks. That's not a law, but it is a rule. It's the first time anyone has done that. There appears to be some more interest in trying to get this under control. And the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, Nita Lowey, said there won't be earmarks in the fiscal year 2020 bills, but she does want to put together a bipartisan group to bring them back. So it goes both ways, but we're doing our best to keep it from getting any worse than it already has been.
So your last report, 282 earmarks, $15.3 billion to be increased, to be exact, rather. What are some of the more egregious projects that you could cite?
Well, you mentioned one, $9 million for fruit flies. They haven't spent money on an earmark for that particular problem, if it is one, for 10 years. There's $16.7 million added by Senator Brian Schatz, no relation, for what's called the East-West Center in Hawaii. That's their entire budget. There was something called the North-South Center in 2001. They were taken off the federal dole, and the East-West Center should be taken off the taxpayers' dole as well.
It's just, you know, wild horse and burrow management. I'm sure that's important to some folks. Aquatic plant control program, the brown tree snake eradication program. I know that's a big issue in Guam, but you know, we just had the latest numbers. The U.S. budget deficit has now widened to $738 billion in just the first 8 months of the fiscal year. I mean, this is a classic example of where some of this money is just disappearing.
Well, absolutely. The deficit is approaching $1 trillion for the next few years. Spending is up. Democrats like certain projects and Republicans like certain projects, and when they get together they said we'll agree to spend more money on each other's priorities rather than saying let's hold the line, let's reduce spending. Senator Rand Paul tried to get the Senate to agree to consider his budget to cut 2 cents out of every dollar, and they wouldn't even vote on it. So taxpayers need to do more to hold their legislators accountable for all of this waste.
Yeah, and you know, it's the way it works right in Washington. You want something passed, you have to go around all the different lawmakers whose votes you need, and in order to sweeten the pot, they get that little, you know, earmarked little project that they need that will give them more support back in their constituency. It's just the way it always put together, and I don't know how you change that, because as I say, we do this story year after year.
Oh, it's changed by continuing to push for the permanent ban. There are, at this point, no names attached to these projects, so there is unfortunately less transparency. We're not urging them to bring that back. But we have to do more, both here in Washington and outside, to hold these legislators accountable. If they think they're not going to get reelected by becoming more fiscally conservative, that would help.
Well, does the PIC report help? Does that put the spotlight on some of these projects and the lawmakers involved?
Well, certainly the projects, certainly the expenditures. Again, it's a little more difficult than it used to be to say who's getting what, other than Senator Schatz, who I mentioned, and maybe Senator Murray, who has the $65 million for Pacific coastal salmon research. But they are all equally guilty if they're voting for these bills, and that's what we need to do more of.
Do you ever get discouraged, Tom, that you know you continue to fight the good fight, but this money is still spent on a yearly basis again and again?
No, in fact, we're encouraged more than ever. We got a great response to the pig book today. Lots of views on social media, lots of people taking more of an interest in this issue, and I think that's really important. As long as we continue to see this kind of support, this kind of interest, we'll keep going.
Very good. We'll keep up the good fight. Tom Schatz, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.